Okay, let's dive in. What does it actually mean for something to think? It's this huge question, isn't it?
It really is. Philosophers, scientists, they've wrestled with it forever.
And today, you're joining us as we dig into the work of someone who really tackled it head on, Alan Turing.
Ah, Turing. Most people probably know him for his incredible work during World War II.
Absolutely, the Enigma code breaking, just phenomenal stuff. Changed the course of the war. But his influence, well, goes way beyond that.
It does. I mean, it's kind of amazing when you think about it. The same mind that helped crack Enigma also laid down the groundwork for how we even talk about AI today.
Exactly, which brings us right to the main event,
Yeah.
the Turing Test. He came up with it way back in 1950.
Yep. It was his way of trying to get a handle on this slippery idea of machine intelligence.
And for this deep dive, you've given us some really interesting sources to work with. We've got stuff from universities, AI websites.
Right, like that GPT-5 podcast, KINU WS24, industry perspectives too.
Wikipedia for the background, naturally, and even a trustworthiness platform perspective. So quite a mix.
It's a good mix. It means we can look at it from all sorts of angles for you. The history, how it actually works, the criticism.
Yeah, and how people see it now with modern AI. Plus these recent claims about AI actually passing the test, which sounds pretty wild.
Definitely. The goal here for you listening is to pull all that together.
Right. We want to give you the core concepts, the big debates around the Turing test, without getting lost in, super technical details.
And hopefully share some surprising bits along the way, stuff that's relevant to where AI is heading.
Okay, sounds like a plan. Ready to jump in?
Let's do it. Starting at the beginning makes sense. Turing's original idea.
All right, so cast your mind back. 1950. Turing publishes this paper, Computing Machinery and Intelligence. A real landmark.
Huge. And in it, he introduces what he first called the imitation game.
Okay, the imitation game. So what was the setup? The sources mention 3 people involved.
That's right. You've got a human interrogator or evaluator, and then 2 others hidden from view.
Hidden? Okay.
One's a machine trying its best to sound human, and the other is, well, an actual human.
And the key thing, I gather, is how they talk.
Exactly. It's all done through text, like piping back and forth, no voice, no seeing each other, purely text-based.
Right. Removes all those other clues. Now, one of the sources mentioned the original game was slightly different, something about a man and a woman.
Ah, yeah, that's interesting. In the very first version, the interrogator had to figure out which of the 2 hidden participants, a man and a woman, was the woman, while the man tried to fool them. Turing then asked, okay, what happens if we swap the man out for a machine?
Ah, okay. So that shift leads us to what we now generally call the Turing test.
Precisely. That graphic you shared shows it nicely. Evaluator C is texting with A and B. One's human, one's a machine.
And C just has to figure out which is the computer.
Yep. And the test is passed if the evaluator basically can't tell. If they're guessing randomly, maybe getting it right only about half the time after a decent conversation.
Then the machine's done it. It's passed.
That's the idea.
So why did Turing set it up like this? What was his thinking?
Well, he was being quite practical, really, instead of getting stuck on defining thinking, which, let's face it, is almost impossible.
Right, yeah. Good luck with that.
He shifted the focus. He said, let's look at behavior. If something acts intelligently, if it can hold a conversation like a human,
Then maybe we should just consider it intelligent for all practical purposes.
pretty much. It's about what it does, not necessarily what's going on inside its head, so to speak. A very behaviorist angle, as one source called it.
Okay, makes sense. Focus on the observable. So did people start building things to try and pass this test right away?
Well, things started moving. ELIZA came along in the mid-60s, 1966.
Eliza. Right, I've heard of that one. It could chat a bit, couldn't it?
It could simulate conversation, yeah. But, and this is important for you to understand, it was pretty basic.
How basic?
It worked mostly by recognizing keywords and just rephrasing things you said back as questions. Simple pattern matching.
So, not really understanding anything.
Not at all. Clever programming for the time, but nowhere near passing a real Turing test. More like a parlor trick.
Okay? And that lack of real understanding brings us to a major philosophical pushback, right? Searle's Chinese room.
Ah, yes, the Chinese room argument. A classic. Really important for you to grasp this one.
Lay it out for us.
Okay, imagine you don't speak a word of Chinese. You're locked in a room.
Right.
You get slips of paper with Chinese writing pushed under the door. Those are the questions. Inside the room, you have this massive rule book, all in English.
A rule book. Okay.
And this rule book tells you exactly which Chinese symbols to send back out in response to the symbols you received. You just follow the rules, matching shapes.
So I don't understand the Chinese. I'm just following instructions.
Exactly. But to someone outside the room, just seeing the questions go in and seemingly intelligent answers come out.
They might think the person inside actually understands Chinese.
Precisely. And Searle's point was, the person inside is like the computer. They can manipulate symbols perfectly according to rules, but there's no understanding. Passing the Turing test, he argued, doesn't prove real comprehension or consciousness.
That really highlights the difference between just simulating intelligence, weak AI, and actually having it strong AI.
That's the core of his argument. And it leads into a whole bunch of other criticisms of the test itself.
Yeah, the sources mentioned quite a few. What are some of the main ones?
Well, one issue raised is that the test doesn't really specify much about the interrogator.
How do you mean?
Like, how skilled are they? What kinds of questions do they ask? The result could depend heavily on who's doing the asking, you know?
True. A savvy interrogator might catch an AI out much easier than someone else.
Right. And another point is that it only tests functionality, the acting human part, not the underlying process. It doesn't prove human-like thinking.
And it's very focused on language, isn't it?
Hugely. It mostly ignores other kinds of intelligence, problem-solving, creativity, learning, emotional intelligence. Things we value in humans.
Yeah, good point. What else? Deception came up.
Yes, the idea that a machine could pass just by being programmed to be tricky, to deceive the evaluator, rather than being genuinely intelligent.
And there's also the worry that focusing only on passing the test could be, well, a bit of a distraction.
That's a big one. Is chasing the Turing test the best use of AI research effort? Or should we focus on AI that solves specific problems even if it doesn't chat like a human?
That connects to the Turing trap idea, doesn't it?
Exactly. The worry that if we obsess too much about just imitating humans, we might actually hold back the development of AI that could genuinely augment our own abilities in new and powerful ways.
Instead of building tools that make us smarter, we just build okay-ish copies of ourselves.
That's the concern. It's something to think about.
Okay, so a lot of criticisms. But have there been actual claims of AI passing it? Eugene Guzman often comes up.
Ah, Eugene, yes, back in 2014. This chatbot supposedly convinced a certain percentage of judges it was human.
Supposedly. Sounds controversial.
Very. A lot of the AI community was, let's say, skeptical. A key issue was the chatbot's persona.
What was the persona?
It was designed to act like a 13-year-old Ukrainian boy.
So English might not be perfect. Knowledge might be patchy.
Exactly. It kind of gives the chatbot a built-in excuse for mistakes or evasiveness. Makes it harder to judge fairly, perhaps easier to seem human because of those flaws.
Yeah, that muddies the waters a bit. It raises questions about the test conditions.
Definitely. What counts as a legitimate pass?
Okay, moving on slightly. Google Duplex. That caused a stir a few years back.
Oh yeah, 2018. That was impressive tech. An AI making phone calls.
Making reservations, sounding incredibly human, including the ums and ahs.
Right. And the famous example was booking a haircut. The person on the other end of the phone had no idea they weren't talking to a real person.
So did that count as passing the Turing test? Even though it was voice, not text?
Well, some people argued it did, in a practical sense. It certainly showed AI could mimic human interaction convincingly in a different modality. It blurred the lines.
Yeah, definitely pushed the boundaries.
Yeah.
Now, flipping the idea on its head, Kepi TCHA.
Haha, yeah. The reverse Turing test. Completely automated public Turing test to tell computers and humans apart.
We've all done them. Clicking on traffic lights, reading weird text.
Exactly. As that image showed, select all images with a bus. The whole point is to create tasks that are easy for us humans.
But hard for bots. To stop automated spam or attacks.
Right, like those DDoS attacks, distributed denial of service, where bots flood a website with requests to crash it. Kepi TCHA helps block those automated requests.
So instead of a machine trying to prove it's human, it's a human trying to prove they're not a machine.
It's a neat inversion of Turing's original idea, used millions of times every day.
Okay, so that brings us up to the really recent stuff. Large language models, LLMs like GPT 4.5, Llama 3, 3. Things are moving fast.
Incredibly fast. And that leads us to that UC San Diego study from 2025 that Kieran WS24 reported on, Jones and Bergen. This is pretty significant.
What did they find? This is the one claiming an AI did pass, right?
Yes, they claim it's the first really robust empirical evidence of an AI passing the standard text-based Turing test. But there's a crucial detail.
Which is,
It was GPT 4.5 with a very specific instruction, a persona prompt.
a persona prompt, like telling it how to act.
Exactly. They told it to act like a young, kind of introverted person who knew a lot about internet culture.
Okay. And what happened?
With that prompt, GPT 4.5 was judged to be human by the evaluators 73% of the time.
73%. Wow. That's way more than chance.
It is. And get this, that was actually higher than the rate at which the real human participants in the study were identified as human.
Wait, really? The AI seemed more human than the humans.
In this specific setup, yes. According to the evaluators' judgments, it wasn't just fooling them sometimes, it was consistently perceived as human.
That's wild. What about the other models they tested?
Llama 3.1, with the same persona prompt, also did well. Identified as human 56% of the time. Still noteworthy.
Okay, but what happened when they didn't use the special prompt?
Ah, that's key. Without the detailed persona prompt, the success rates for GPT 4.5, Llama 3.1, and also GPT 4.0 dropped significantly, down into the 21-38% range.
Okay, so clearly not passing the test then.
No. And Eliza, for comparison, was way, way lower, as you'd expect.
So that persona prompt was absolutely critical. Why did it make such a huge difference?
Well, the article breaks it down nicely for you. First, it gave the AI specific behavioral guidance. It helped it act consistently like the kind of person the evaluators might expect in that chat setting, young, net savvy.
Right, so it wasn't just acting like a generic, maybe overly formal AI.
Exactly, which is the second point. It helped the AI avoid those typical AI tells perfect grammar, knowing everything, maybe sounding a bit stiff. By acting introverted and into internet culture, it sounded more natural, relatable.
More like a real, slightly flawed person you might chat with online.
Precisely. It wasn't just about getting facts right, it was about nailing the style and the persona.
And the third reason.
It just shows how adaptable these LLMs are. They can take these complex instructions about playing a role and actually do it pretty convincingly. It's less about raw intelligence, maybe, and more about sophisticated imitation based on instructions. Instructed imitation was the term the researchers used.
Instructed imitation. Okay. So what about the humans trying to spot the AI in that study? What tricks did they use?
Interestingly, the most common things they tried weren't the most effective.
Like what?
Small talk, asking about hobbies, daily life, and trying to probe emotions or opinions. They did that a lot.
You'd think that would work. Asking about feelings.
Yeah, but apparently these prompted LLMs are pretty good at faking plausible answers there now. The strategies that worked better, though used less often, were things like asking really weird, off-the-wall questions.
Trying to throw it off balance.
Kind of. Or attempting jailbreaks, trying to get the AI to break character or admit it's an AI.
Ah, okay. And testing general knowledge or logic didn't work so well either.
Nope. Seems the key wasn't just facts, but catching inconsistencies or unnaturalness, maybe by pushing the boundaries of the conversation or the persona.
And when the evaluators did make a judgment, what reasons did they give? What made them think human or AI?
It mostly came down to linguistic style, how things were said, the flow of the conversation, socio-emotional stuff like perceived personality or humor, less about pure smarts.
So the vibe almost.
Yeah, the overall feel. And interestingly, sometimes mistakes or saying, I don't know, actually made the AI seem more human to the judges.
Wait, being imperfect made it seem more human. The lack makes human effect.
Exactly. If it was too perfect, too knowledgeable, that could sometimes be a red flag for the evaluators. It's a funny paradox.
Wow. So to seem human, maybe AI needs to learn to make human-like mistakes.
It certainly makes you think about what we subconsciously associate with human communication, which brings us back to the big philosophical question.
Does passing the test, even like this, mean real intelligence, real understanding, consciousness?
And the general feeling, even with these results, seems to be probably not. It's still measuring behavior imitation, not necessarily inner experience. Searle's Chinese room still looms large.
Right. And it raises all sorts of other questions as AI gets better at this imitation game.
Absolutely. Ethical concerns, how we interact with these things. It's crucial stuff we need to figure out.
And are there other ways people are thinking about testing AI now, beyond Turing?
Yes, definitely. Some alternatives were mentioned in the sources, like the Metzinger test.
Where the AI has to argue that it isn't an AI. That sounds tricky.
It does. And the Lovelace 2.0 test, which focuses on creativity, can the AI create something genuinely new and surprising?
Not just following patterns. and the Winograd Schema Challenge.
Right, that tests understanding context and common sense, often by resolving pronouns in tricky sentences, things that require real-world knowledge.
So people are trying to test different facets of intelligence that the original Turing test maybe misses.
Exactly, trying to move beyond just linguistic imitation.
So where does that leave the Turing test itself? Is it still relevant?
Well, it's definitely still huge in popular culture, right? It's the benchmark everyone knows.
True, it's iconic.
But as a rigorous scientific measure, maybe less so now, AI is getting so sophisticated, the sources suggest its limitations are becoming clearer.
So future tests might need to look broader. Multimodal intelligence, understanding images, sound, text together, creativity, ethics.
Seems likely. The goalposts for what we consider intelligent AI keep moving as the tech itself evolves.
Okay, this has been really insightful, a great deep dive for you, our listener. Let's just quickly recap the main points.
We started with Turing's original imitation game, how it became the test we know.
Looked at the many criticisms its focus on language, the potential for deception, the Chinese rune argument.
Discussed past claims like Eugene Guzman and things like Google Duplex blurring the lines.
And then the big recent news.
Yeah.
The UC San Diego study where GPT 4.5, with that specific persona prompt,
Managed to convince evaluators it was human, more often than actual humans were, seemingly passing the test under those conditions, really showing off the imitation skills of modern LLMs.
right, underscoring that power of instructed imitation.
It's clear these models can mimic human conversational styles very effectively when guided.
Okay, so here's a final thought for you to chew on. Given that AI can now imitate us so convincingly, sometimes even adopting our flaws to seem more real, what does that actually mean?
What does it mean for how we understand intelligence, or even communication itself?
And looking ahead, as we interact more and more with these systems, should we be focusing all our energy on trying to tell human and AI apart?
Or perhaps should we start thinking about how to adapt to a world where that line just gets fuzzier and fuzzier, and maybe it matters less than we thought?
A really big question to consider.
Definitely food for thought as this technology keeps racing forward.
Absolutely. We really hope you'll dig into those sources further and think about what all this means for you. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive today.